You know, one of the greatest debates that wrestling fans have is, what is, hands down, excuse me, the best WrestleMania of all time? And a lot of times, the conversation, the debate is usually between two WrestleManias. WrestleMania 3 in 1987 and WrestleMania 17 in 2001. In my opinion, those are the two best WrestleManias of all time. But which one was the best? For me personally, I like 17 more than I like 3. And that's not a knock against 3. I just it's just a personal preference of mine. And a close friend of mine, you've seen him on this channel before, Robert, has always been pro WrestleMania 3 when it comes to the debate. And I saw him comment on a Facebook post by a wrestling page the other day about WrestleMania 3 being hands down the best. So it kind of inspired me to do this video, and what I'm doing is I am going to compare the two WrestleManias. Now, this is my personal opinion on all these. You know, I am more than happy to see people debate on this and how they would go about comparing the two WrestleManias. For me, the way I'm doing it is match placement is key to a great card, to a great show, in my opinion. So if you're going to be the best WrestleMania, you got to be, from the opening match to the last match, a solid card. And what I've decided to do is take the cards and match them up against each other. Opening match versus opening match. Second match versus second match. And so forth. Now, to make it fair, I had to eliminate a match from WrestleMania 3. For the simple fact, WrestleMania 3 featured 12 matches, while WrestleMania 17 only had 11 matches. Now, I could have had the pre-show match, which, who really cares about the pre-show match? I never count them towards the card, and so I decided just to eliminate what, in my opinion, was the worst match of the WrestleMania 3 card, and that was the 6-man mixed match with Hillbilly Jim teaming up with midget tag team partners Little Beaver and the Haiti Kid to take on King Kong Bundy and his midget partners, Lord Littlebrook and Little Tokyo. Now, Hillbilly's team won by a disqualification when Bundy body slammed and then elbow dropped Little Beaver. Big guys can't be picking on the little guys now. So, the match really had no long-term storyline effects or anything. I don't even really remember there being much of a follow-up to it. So, I felt, in fairness, that match needed to be eliminated so that WrestleMania 3 could still have a very strong card. And, you know, the match, I think, did its purpose of being just kind of a specialty, you know, comedy match for the fans in attendance. You know, I'm not going to say it was like an abomination or anything, you know, but, you know, it served its purpose, and it got King Kong Bundy onto the show, the previous year's Mania main eventer. So, with that being said, I'm going to now run down the cards here. Again, opening match versus opening match, main event versus main event. And I will tell you which one I feel was the best one out of the two matches matched up against each other. And we're going to keep a score here. High score wins. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are no draws. I will not do a dusty finish like that on you and have a draw and have this thing end in a draw. We're going to have a decisive winner as far as I'm concerned. And in my opinion, no matter who wins, there's no wrong answer on who had the best WrestleMania. So, let's get started here. The opening match of WrestleMania 3 and WrestleMania 17. For 3, we had the Can-Am Connection of Rick Martel and Tom Zink take on the tag team of the Magnificent Morocco and Cowboy Bob Orton, the father of the Viper Randy Orton. It's pitted up against, from WrestleMania 17, the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship match, Chris Jericho versus William Regal. Now, I think that both matches serve their purpose because really the opening match should be the match to really start getting that crowd warmed up, get it fired up and ready. And I think the Can-Ams and Morocco and Orton did that for WrestleMania 3. You know, it was a fun little tag match. You know, it wasn't like a big blowaway or a 5-star classic or anything, but I think it served its purpose with the Can-Ams going over because they were the hot new tag team on the scene, and until Tom Zink unfortunately decided to bolt from the company because of falling out with Martel in real life, you know, I think the Can-Ams were slated to eventually become the World Tag Team Champions. But it is what it is. As far as Jericho and Regal go, for the Intercontinental title match, it wasn't the best Intercontinental Championship match, but I think it did serve its purpose as well in getting the crowd going for the show, and it saw Jericho retain the championship. And a fairly good match. Again, not a top 5-star classic or anything, but it did blow off in a lot of ways. Well, maybe not blow off, because I do believe they did have a match at the next pay-per-view. But it served its purpose, Jericho going over. The crowd started off happy because on both sides you had a babyface side win. But if I were to pick a winner out of this head-to-head matchup, I'm going to go with Jericho versus Regal. So the score now will be WrestleMania 17-1, WrestleMania 3-0. The second match is on these cards. You had WrestleMania 3 giving us the feud between Billy Jack Haynes and the Mighty Hercules. On the other side, you had a 6-man tag match. You had the APA of Bradshaw and Farouk teaming up with Taz to face the Right to Censor, which was Val Venus, Bull Buchanan, and the Good Father, formerly known as the Godfather at the time. Again, neither match was really a blowaway. Hercules and Haynes did have the heat because they were feuding over who was the master of the full Nelson. But the thing that really drags it down is the fact that it ended in a double countout. And the post-match beatdown of Haynes did leave us some nice little blood for the show. But I don't remember there really being much of a blow-off to this feud. So it does bring it down to me that there wasn't a winner for this match. For the 6-man tag, again, it wasn't a 5-star classic or anything. It was just kind of there. And it saw the APA and Taz get the victory with Bradshaw, the home state boy from Texas, with the show being in Houston, Texas, in the Astrodome, going over to really pop the crowd. So, and to me, I think that match, WrestleMania 17, takes the win in that one right there. So we got the score now. WrestleMania 17 takes a 2-0 lead. Now, next up for WrestleMania 3 would have been the match that I have eliminated, the 6-man match with the midgets, but we're going to bypass that. I've already given my thoughts on it. And we go to the next match of the card, which would be the King, Harley Race, taking on his rival at the time, the Junkyard Dog, and the loser must bow before the winner. The opponents for them in this instance would be the Triple Threat Hardcore Championship match, with champion Raven defending against the Big Show and Kane. Now, I expected a lot more out of Race and Junkyard Dog. I felt like JYD in this match took too much of the offense and basically made Race look like a jobber. But Race did pull off the win with a belly-to-belly suplex after a quick little distraction by Bobby the Brain Heenan to gain the victory, only to see the dog. Yes, he did bow before the King, but then he decided to knock him out with a chair and steal the precious robe of King Harley Race. Raven, Kane, and Big Show, they had a fun hardcore match that went all over the building to the backstage and then finished on the ramp with a spot that saw him fall through part of the stage, and Kane would walk away victorious, I believe pinning the Big Show to win the championship. The match didn't really leave much for me, so, you know, I think in that instance, I'm going to give the win to the Junkyard Dog and Harley Race. So WrestleMania 3 gets themselves a win here to make the score 2-1. Next, we have the Dream Team of Brutus, the soon-to-be Barber Beefcake, and Greg the Hammer Valentine taking on the Rougeau brothers. While on WrestleMania 17 side, we had the European Championship match with Test defending against the late Eddie Guerrero. the Dream Team and the Rougeos, the Dream Team would come away victorious, but my problem with the match was that afterwards, Valentine and Beefcake did their split. They won thanks to interference from what would be Beefcake's replacement on the team, Dino Bravo. But then Valentine would just kind of leave Beefcake, who had accidentally struck him earlier in the match. And, I know Beefcake had an issue with Adrian Adonis because of an accidental haircutting, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But it didn't make any sense to me that if they were going to do this big split because of a botched spot, that the Dream Team would go over. So, I kind of lean towards the other side, testing Eddie Guerrero. Again, not a 5-star classic, but Eddie Guerrero, lie, cheat, and steal, with a little help from his radical buddies, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn, would win the European Championship. So, if I'm forced to choose, I'm definitely think I'm going to go with Eddie Guerrero and Test on that one. So, it's WrestleMania 17-3, WrestleMania 3, just 1. And I mentioned Adrian Adonis. Next up is Adrian Adonis versus Roddy Piper. The Battle of the Flower Shop versus Piper's Pit in a haircut match in what would be Roddy Piper's first of 5,000 retirement matches. Now, Piper would leave after this show to go away for a couple years and film movies in Hollywood, which included, I believe, They Live was one of his movies that he filmed during this time, as well as the wrestling movie called Body Slam. Now, they're pitted up against what I thought was a very great technical wrestling match, Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. This was one of those that was tough to choose from. Benoit and Angle definitely put on what I thought was a good clinic, and, good chain wrestling to begin before really picking up the intensity. In the end, Angle got the win with a roll up and I believe a pull of the tights, while Piper and Adonis had the good crowd heat, and they had the feud that had been going on for months, and it culminated with Piper getting the win with the sleeper hold, with maybe a little bit of help from Brutus Beefcake, but not enough to really affect things. And of course, Beefcake would shave Adonis's head, thus earning himself the name the Barber. So, and also kudos to Jimmy Hart for all the bumps he took during this match as manager of Adonis. It was definitely one of the highlights of Mania, that match of WrestleMania 3. So I am definitely going to take Piper and Adonis as the victors in this head-to-head competition. So that would make us WrestleMania 17 with 3 wins and WrestleMania 3 with 2 wins. Up next, we have the Hart Foundation, who were the World Tag Team Champions, teaming up with evil heel referee turned wrestler, Dangerous Danny Davis, to take on the British Bulldogs, who Davis helped the Harts steal the tag team titles from, and their tag team partner, Tito Santana. And their head-to-head competition is the Women's Championship match between champion Ivory and the late Chyna. I'm just going to flat out say it. The women's match was, in my mind, a complete dud. Chyna basically made Ivory out to be a complete jobber. And, Ivory basically had no offense outside of attacking Chyna at the beginning of the match with the belt. So, on the other side, you had the crowd going crazy to see Danny Davis finally get his, but then, unfortunately, have to be pissed off when he got the cheap win with a megaphone shot from Jimmy Hart to Davey Boy Smith to give the win to the Harts and Davis. But with that being said, that's an easy pick for me, is that the Harts and Danny Davis versus the Bulldogs and Tito Santana get the win in this one to tie this score up at 3-3. Next, we have the Natural Butch Reed versus Coco Beware, representing WrestleMania 3. And their head-to-head competition is going to be the street fight between Shane McMahon, the storyline new owner of WCW, and Vince McMahon, the owner, of course, of the World Wrestling Federation. Now, Reed versus Ware really, I think, was just a match to, kind of have a cool down spot, so to speak. And you'll understand why when you hear what the next match is for WrestleMania 3. And it, I think it served its purpose to kind of, get Reed put over. And then, of course, you had the situation afterwards where Tito Santana got involved and ripped the clothes off of the Doctor of Styles, Slick, who was attacking Coco Beware with his cane after the match. After Coco did kind of cheap shot Reed. But with that being said, their competition in this, the Battle of the McMahons, that one really had the crowd behind it. It also had Mick Foley as the special guest referee. And it saw Shane, with help from his mother, Linda, and as well as Trish Stratus, get the win and just really pop the crowd who really wanted to see Vince get his. Again, Shane was the storyline new owner of WCW, which WWF at the time had just purchased the previous Monday, thus ending the Monday Night Wars. So you could say WrestleMania 17 was kind of the victory celebration for the WWF. And this was the whole kickoff, what would be the horrible invasion angle to come later in the year. But that's a story for another time. In this head-to-head competition, I'm giving it to the McMahons. Next up is probably the toughest matchup for me. For WrestleMania 3, the Intercontinental Championship match with Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Yes, that match. Their head-to-head competition, TLC 2 for the World Tag Team titles. The champions, the Dudley Boys, defending against the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. Both matches were great in their own right. The TLC 2 match was exactly what you thought it would be. A Spot Fest Demolition Derby with some great action to it. Savage and Steamboat was the culmination of the feud that started late the previous year between Savage and Steamboat, that saw Steamboat's throat get injured by Savage during a televised match, and the build to Steamboat coming back to get his revenge on Savage, George Steele in the corner who had been feuding with the Macho Man. The crowd was into it. The near falls were amazing. It is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the greatest Intercontinental title match in WrestleMania history. So, and this again was a tough choice, but I can't help myself. Steamboat, Savage, all the way. There was no question in my mind on that one. So to me, that evens it up at 4 wins apiece for the two Manias. Next up was one of my no-brainers, the Honky Tonk Man versus Jake the Snake Roberts, and that's going to go head-to-head with the Gimmick Battle Royal from WrestleMania 17. Now, the Gimmick Battle Royal served its purpose. It was really just a dead spot match for the two matches that were to follow. But it served its purpose as being, a quick, entertaining match for the fans that saw the Iron Sheik get the win. While the Honky Tonk Man, Jake Roberts, was a feud that started on Jake Roberts' Snake Pit. And it was basically just kind of used to get the Honky Tonk Man over with a cheap, cheating win. But it didn't end the feud or anything. It continued on. The crowd was into it still, even though Honky got the win. So, but it's a no-brainer on that one. Honky and Jake Roberts get the win on that one. So, WrestleMania 3 not only comes back from that 3-1 deficit, but it actually goes up 5 wins to 4, as far as I'm concerned. Next up would be the semi-main events, the next to last matches, or as some people call them, the death spot matches. You've got the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, who incidentally are the only two guys that can say they competed on both these cards, because the Sheik didn't just win the Gimmick Battle Royal, but Nikolai Volkov also competed in that Battle Royal. Go figure. Their opponents for this were the Killer Bees. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan made his not exactly his debut, but we'll say his pay-per-view debut, stopping Volkov from singing the national anthem, but also costing the Bees the match when he would whack the Iron Sheik in the back with the 2x4 while he had Jim Brunzell in the camel clutch, does kind of making the Bees basic jobbers almost, and just kind of really looks bad. But I don't think too many people really cared about that. I think the Bees, the bloom was off the rose for them, as they would say. But it is what it is. Their head-to-head competition would be the first WrestleMania matchup between The Undertaker and Triple H. Now, my only problem with this match was the referee being down spot. That, the referee was down for so dang long, I'm surprised they didn't have somebody in there giving him CPR. But, I digress on that. It is what it is. It was clearly the better of the two matches. The crowd was into it. The crowd was hot for it. And Undertaker gets the win to continue his streak at the time, which I think it moved his streak up to 9-0. So, Undertaker, Triple H get the win for WrestleMania 17. That one to even the score at 5-5 as we go to the main event. And the main event, of course, for WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan defending the World Championship against Andre the Giant, head-to-head with The Rock defending the WWF World Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin, there in the heart of Texas, Houston, Texas, with right before the match, it being announced that it would be a no DQ match. Both matches were great in their own right. And, I know I am not the world's biggest Hulk Hogan fan. I will just not even I will not say my personal feelings as far as Hulk Hogan goes. I have vowed to stay unbiased in this, and I'm going to. And the match to me was what it was. It was Andre the Giant showing what guys like Hogan should have learned to do, and that is do the right thing for business. You put over the person that's going to be the flagship, so to speak, the passing of the torch, and that's what Andre the Giant did. And him versus Hulk Hogan was a very memorable match. The crowd obviously was into it in major ways, and Hogan, as he should have, went over and kept the title. Meanwhile, The Rock and Steve Austin was everything you could have asked for. A straight up fight between the two biggest stars of the Attitude Era that saw both men just bloodied. And the only thing that brought it down for me was the involvement of Vince McMahon coming out and them, for no reason at all, turning Stone Cold Steve Austin into a heel, and him helping Steve Austin win the world title and have the most unneeded heel turn in the history of the WWF, in my opinion. If there's a straight up winner in that match, if it just stays straight up, no heel turn, no interference, nothing, to me that makes it the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. And so, with that being said, to be fair, if I'm to give the win in this one, I'm giving it to Hogan and Andre. So therefore, WrestleMania 3, as far as my opinion goes, wins this battle. Hogan and Andre served its purpose. It was, and so did Rock and Austin. So, I meant what I said before. There is no right or wrong answer to this. To me, WrestleMania 17 is still the better show. Maybe if you just personally yourself ranked the matches from best to worst and then compared them that way. But I thought this was the best way to go about it, was go up and down the card, first match to last match. And, to be fair, I give the win 6-5 to WrestleMania 3. And let's not forget, both these shows are considered the culmination of the two biggest boom periods in the history of wrestling. The boom period of the 80s and the boom period of the mid to late 90s. And what great times they were to be a wrestling fan. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. Feel free to comment on this and give your opinion on what you think was the best WrestleMania of all time. And if you're not yet done it, do hit like, do hit subscribe, and hit the little notification bell so you can be informed when new content is put up on the page. Hope you all are having wonderful time. I hope you enjoyed this video. You all take care, and I will talk to you again later.
We about to turn it up.